All right, let's jump into this deep dive on faith. I got to say, right off the bat, this disclaimer in the source material is a real attention grabber. It says, cleanse your manas, mind, with practice of sadhana, and then go through literature, otherwise reality will be lost upon you.
Intense, right?
Yeah, definitely sense the tone. Manas, that's the mind, and sadhana basically means spiritual practice. So it's like we're being told to, approach this with a certain level of inner clarity. You got to do a little mental prep work.
All right, so we'll declutter our minds before we even start. Sounds like good advice. This deep dive focuses on Shri Suresh Kumar Makam's work, a disciple of Shri Raghavendra Saheb, but we'll just call him Shri Suresh to keep things simple. He's exploring faith, and get this, he's tying it into both yogic sciences and the teachings of Shri Chandraji Maharaj of Shahjahanpur, who is also known as Shri Babuji Maharaj. It's interesting how Shri Suresh kicks things off, He points out this kind of contradiction in modern life, like, we've accomplished so much, right? Think about all the tech, science, everything. But there's this feeling, this nagging sense that something's still off, like we're missing something.
Yeah, totally. It's that, is this all there is?
Yeah.
Feeling, even when you've seemingly achieved everything. I think we've all been there.
Exactly. And Shri Suresh suggests that maybe this feeling, this yearning, isn't actually a bad thing. It's like a signpost pointing us towards something deeper, beyond just material success.
So it's not about feeling bad because we're not satisfied. It's about using that feeling to find something more. I like that.
Right. And that's where faith comes in. Shri Suresh challenges the typical view of faith, like that it's just blind belief or wishful thinking. He's saying it's more like an internal compass, guiding us through the unknown. It's how we navigate our inner world, and our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
So it's less about what we believe and more about how it pushes us forward to discover our potential.
Yeah, exactly. He even compares it to like a sailor navigating the ocean. They rely on a compass to find their way, and we can use faith to navigate through life and find a more fulfilling way of being.
Okay, so this isn't just about religion. It's about trusting in a process of self-discovery, even if we don't know where we'll end up.
Precisely. And this is what leads to another fascinating part of Shri Suresh's work. He proposes there's a science of soul and a spiritual science. He says these actually transcend all existing religions and philosophies.
Hold on, a science of soul. How does that even work?
Well, Shri Suresh points to the design of the human body and how it actually kind of mirrors the design of the universe. He says this interconnectedness points towards a deeper order.
So, like, we're connected to a cosmic blueprint.
Yeah, exactly. And this science of soul is all about exploring that connection, understanding those principles that govern our inner world and how they relate to the bigger picture.
This is starting to sound like we need to be detectives to figure this all out.
Yeah. But that sense of exploration, that desire to understand our place in everything, well, that's kind of a core part of being human, isn't it?
Think about it. Through all of history, we've always been striving for better, better, better. Look at Elon Musk, pushing boundaries in space, or Zuckerberg changing how we connect. There's this drive to achieve, to reach further.
It's like a defining trait, yeah. And Shri Suresh uses those examples to make a point. He contrasts them with Gautama Buddha's life, A prince who had it all, wealth, power, but he walked away from it all, seeking something deeper.
Right. Buddha's story really shows how fulfillment isn't about outward achievement. It was like he knew there had to be something more to life.
Exactly. And that journey led him to enlightenment. Liberation from suffering, a deeper understanding of reality. And think about the impact of his teachings, passed down through disciples like Sariputra, known for his wisdom, and Moggallana, known for his psychic abilities.
Right. It's amazing how dedicated discipleship like that can spread profound truths.
It speaks to the power of those teachings, right? This timeless wisdom still offers guidance and inspiration, even thousands of years later.
Like it taps into something fundamental within us, something that goes beyond time and cultures. And speaking of ancient wisdom, Shri Suresh also dives into insights from other great thinkers, those who grappled with the nature of, man and the divine. People like Jesus Christ, Sri Lalaji Maharaj, Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujanacharya, and Madhvacharya.
It's incredible to think that these individuals from different times and places reach such profound conclusions, about reality and the human condition. And they did it all without the tech and science we have now.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, maybe we're missing something now. Have we become so reliant on technology that we've lost touch with our ability for introspection and that inner wisdom?
It's a good question to consider. And maybe that's where this science of soul comes in. It's about rediscovering that inner connection, that intuition we all have.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces are connecting. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take a closer look at one of the cornerstones of this ancient wisdom that Shri Suresh explores, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras.
Ah, yes, the Yoga Sutras. This compilation of ancient yogic wisdom put together by the sage Patanjali offers a framework for understanding, well, the human mind and how to achieve liberation. Kaivalya, that's what it's called. And this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, so we've gone from modern-day high achievers to ancient spiritual masters. Now we're talking about yoga. How does this all tie back to faith and self-realization?
The Yoga Sutras lay out a path called the 8 limbs of yoga. Each one focuses on a different aspect of self-development and leads towards self-realization. And faith is what drives it. Not just believing, but actively using those practices to push beyond our limits to uncover our true potential.
So faith isn't passive. It's about actively engaging in practices that help us discover who we really are.
Exactly. It's like the 8 limbs are a systematic way to remove the obstacles that are hiding our true nature, to get rid of the coverings and impurities that are keeping us from experiencing that innate perfection within.
I'm ready to unpack these 8 limbs and see how they all work. What are they about, and how do they connect to this journey of self-discovery?
So picking up where we left off, you know those 8 limbs of yoga, they're like a practical guide to, well, self-realization.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's like this journey from the outside in, right? Starting with how we interact with the world, then mastering our bodies, our energy, and finally diving deep into the mind. It seems very systematic.
You got it. And it's not about just jumping straight into meditation. It starts with building a strong ethical foundation. Those are the first 2 limbs, yama and niyama. Yama is about ethical restraints, things like nonviolence, truthfulness, not stealing, while niyama focuses on personal observances, purity, contentment, self-discipline.
So before we even get to the yoga poses, we're talking about living more consciously, more ethically. Makes sense. That would be crucial for any inner transformation.
Absolutely. Aligning our actions with our values, creating that inner harmony, that's the groundwork. Then comes the part most people think of first, asana, the physical postures.
Ah, the yoga poses. So is it all about flexibility?
Flexibility is great, don't get me wrong, but asana is more about developing awareness of your body, building strength and stability. It's like creating that solid foundation for the deeper practices.
Like prepping the physical self for the more subtle stuff. Okay, so after we've nailed that downward dog, what's next?
Next comes pranayama, which is all about controlling the breath. Here's where we work directly with prana, the vital life force energy that flows through us.
Now, this is where things get really interesting for me. The idea that we can impact our energy and well-being just by how we breathe. That's powerful stuff.
It really is. Pranayama can calm your nervous system, boost your energy, and prep you for those deeper meditative states.
Okay, so we've covered ethics, our physical body, and our energy. What's the next step on this yogic ladder?
Now we turn inward with pratyahara, the withdrawal of the senses. It's the 5th limb.
Wait, does that mean sitting in a dark room, blocking out all stimulation? Sounds a bit intense for me.
No, it's not that extreme. Pratyahara is more about gently shifting your attention away from all the external distractions, turning it inward. It's about noticing those subtle sensations and energies within your body.
So it's like training ourselves to be more present, more aware of what's happening inside, instead of getting caught up in everything going on around us. That's a valuable skill in today's world.
You could say that. And from that place of stillness, that's where we move into dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Those last 3 limbs are all about mastering the mind.
Okay, break it down for me. What exactly are dharana, dhyana, and samadhi?
Dharana is concentration, focusing your mind on one thing without getting distracted. Dhyana is meditation, sustaining that focus and going deep into the object of your meditation. And finally, samadhi. That's a state of total absorption, a merging with what you're meditating on.
So it's like a progression.
Yeah.
From focusing to meditating to ultimately merging with what we're focusing on. Wow. But with all this talk of ethical conduct, physical mastery, mental discipline, where does faith actually fit into all this?
Faith is woven through this whole process. It's the trust that these practices are actually leading somewhere, that they have the power to transform us. It's the courage to keep going when things get tough. Because believe me, Shri Suresh doesn't sugarcoat it. This journey is not always easy.
Right. It's easy to romanticize spiritual growth, but I'm sure it comes with its fair share of challenges. What kind of obstacles are we talking about?
Oh, he gets real about it. Physical limitations, mental limitations, doubts, lack of motivation, you name it. laziness, getting caught up in pleasure, even struggling to stay focused once you've achieved it. Shri Suresh also points out how our perception of the world can become a roadblock. He says, and I quote, "To the discriminating, all is, as it were, painful."
That sounds kind of bleak.
Yeah.
Is he saying life is just inherently painful?
No, I don't think so. I think what he means is that as long as we're clinging to specific outcomes, always trying to control everything and avoid discomfort, we're going to be disappointed. He even compares how we live now to being in a dream, a hypnotic trance where we've forgotten who we truly are.
So we're kind of sleepwalking through life, caught in a cycle of wanting and not wanting, instead of seeing things clearly.
That's the idea. And that's where these yogic practices come in. They're like a wake-up call, helping us see through that illusion of separateness and realize our true nature, what's called the Purusha.
We've mentioned Purusha a few times. Can you clarify what that means exactly?
Purusha refers to our true self, pure consciousness, the essence behind all our experiences. It's different from Prakriti, which is all the material stuff, our bodies, minds, senses.
So it's that unchanging part of us, the observer behind all our thoughts and feelings.
Precisely. And the goal of yoga is to realize that distinction, to free ourselves from identifying with all the ups and downs of the mind and body.
Like taking off a virtual reality headset that's been showing us a distorted view.
Yeah.
Suddenly we can see clearly without all those mental filters.
Great analogy. And the key to taking those goggles off, to seeing clearly, is discrimination. Shri Suresh talks about how important it is to learn to tell the difference between what's real and unreal, what lasts and what fades away.
So it's not just blindly following rules, but using our intellect to understand reality and make choices that line up with our deepest truth.
Exactly. And he uses this cool example to illustrate it. He says, the nature of the experienced is for the Purusha, meaning the whole world, all of nature is there for the soul's evolution.
So even the difficult experiences, they can help us grow and move towards self-realization.
You got it. And that brings up the importance of detachment. If we can let go of needing things to go a certain way, we can handle life's ups and downs with a lot more grace.
Like watching a movie.
Yeah.
You can get wrapped up in the drama, but you know it's just a story playing out, not real life.
Exactly. And when we apply that to our own lives, we experience a whole new level of freedom. We can still enjoy life, feel all the emotions, but we're not so caught up in the roller coaster.
Okay, so we've got the 8 limbs, the obstacles, the importance of discrimination and detachment. Lots to consider. But there's one more thing I want to touch on before we move on. Kaivalya.
Ah, yes, Kaivalya. This is the big goal in yoga, complete liberation. Shri Suresh describes it as, I'm quoting here, the resolution in the inverse order of the qualities, bereft of any motive of action for the Purusha.
Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean?
It's definitely complex. But basically, Kaivalya is total independence, where the soul recognizes its true nature as separate from everything else. It's pure consciousness, free from the limits of the material world.
So the soul is escaping the matrix, basically.
Huh. It's realizing that who we are is not our thoughts, emotions, experiences, or even our physical body. It's pure awareness, pure potential.
And this is something we can achieve.
Shri Suresh believes so. He says, in this state, the knowledge bereft of covering and impurities becomes infinite, and the knowable becomes small.
So our perspective completely shifts, right? All the stuff that seemed so important suddenly becomes small, like experiencing a whole new level of reality.
You got it. And even if we never reach that full state of Kaivalya in this life, just the journey itself changes us. Every step towards self-understanding brings us closer.
Like climbing a mountain, even if we don't reach the summit, the views along the way are amazing.
Exactly. The important thing is to keep practicing, keep asking questions, keep moving forward on this path.
This has been such an insightful exploration. It's amazing how Shri Suresh connects all these threads. Faith, the pursuit of truth, the science of the soul, and the practical tools of yoga. Anything in particular that stands out to you?
What strikes me is how much Shri Suresh emphasizes personal experience. It's not just theory. He's inviting us to actually engage with these practices, to experiment, to discover the truth for ourselves.
That's what makes it so relevant, right? It's not just some ancient wisdom in a book. It's a living tradition, tools we can use to navigate life and reach our full potential.
Absolutely. It's a call to embark on that journey of self-discovery, guided by faith and supported by this ancient wisdom.
Which leads perfectly into the last part of Shri Suresh's exploration. Next time we'll dive into siddhis, those supernatural powers that can appear on the path of spiritual awakening. It's going to get really interesting. All right, welcome back to our deep dive. We've been on quite a journey exploring Shri Suresh's take on faith, haven't we? From faith as our inner compass to the 8 limbs of yoga for self-realization, and even kaivalya, that state of total liberation. It's been a lot.
It has, and now we're heading into some truly fascinating territory. Siddhis, those supernatural powers.
This is the part that always gets me. Levitation, telepathy, clairvoyance.
Yeah,
Like, we're talking about the stuff of legends here.
it definitely sparks the imagination, but Sri Suresh keeps it grounded, you know?
Yeah.
He says that these powers can show up in a few different ways, through birth, through chemicals, the power of words, mortification, or concentration.
Hold on, some people are just born with these abilities. How does that even work?
Sri Suresh attributes it to past karma, actions and intentions from past lives. But he also says that these powers can be developed through certain practices. Some of them sound pretty intense.
He mentions mortification and chemical means. Mortification doesn't sound too pleasant.
Yeah, it refers to things like extreme fasting, exposure to extreme temperatures, or other forms of self-denial. It was common in ancient traditions, often used to purify the body and mind, build up that spiritual discipline.
I can see how that could push someone to their limits and maybe even unlock some hidden potential. But what about these chemical means? Is he talking about some ancient potion or something?
He actually talks about radayanas, alchemical preparations that often use mercury and sulfur. They believed it could prolong life and enhance your abilities.
So, like, ancient biohacking. That's wild. It's like these traditions were already exploring stuff that modern science is just starting to understand.
I know, right? But here's the thing. Sri Suresh says that even though these powers exist and there are ways to get them, he warns against getting too fixated on them.
So they're not the ultimate goal. We're not trying to become superheroes.
Right. He sees them as potential distractions, even obstacles on the path to liberation. He says that true power is about mastering ourselves, realizing our true nature as pure consciousness, as the Purusha, not about controlling the external world.
He even says these powers are obstacles to Samadhi, but they are powers in the worldly state. So it's like maybe they give you a temporary sense of power, but they're ultimately leading you away from what really matters.
Yeah, like getting sidetracked by shiny objects. They might look appealing, but they're not what we're truly after. True fulfillment comes from realizing our inherent wholeness, not from having supernatural abilities.
So when we reach that state of liberation, that kaivalya, what's it like?
Sri Suresh describes it as pure awareness, infinite knowledge. He says, the knowledge bereft of covering and impurities becoming infinite, the knowable becomes small.
So our perception expands so much that everything that seemed important before is just tiny. Like a total shift in how we understand reality.
Exactly. A complete transformation of how we see the world.
Sounds amazing and kind of terrifying at the same time. It's a huge leap from our everyday experience.
It is a radical shift, but it's a possibility for all of us. It all starts with that curiosity, that yearning for something more. That's what we were talking about at the beginning of this whole deep dive.
Recognizing there's more to life than meets the eye. Having the courage to go on this journey of self-discovery.
And it's a journey that needs both wisdom and surrender. We need our intellect to see through illusions, but also the humility to let go and trust the process.
This deep dive into Sri Suresh's perspective on faith has really been eye-opening. I've had to rethink some things, and it's definitely broadened my understanding of what's possible.
It's an invitation to keep exploring, keep questioning, keep seeking those truths within us.
Well said. This deep dive has been an incredible exploration of faith, self-realization, and the amazing potential that we all have. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, keep diving deep.